Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Gretchen, and today I have another review from the Women's Prize for Nonfiction Longlist, and today I'll be talking about Vulture, Capitalism by Grace Blakeley. Now, this is the fourth book that I have finished from the longlist, and so far I've had 2 5 stars, a 4.5 star, and sadly my streak of stellar books is over. And this is my first 3-star read from the long list. Now, there are several reasons why this book didn't work for me. And before I start to get into those reasons, I just want to be clear that number one, this book is not going to be for everybody because it is a very niche subject matter, and I am not the target audience for this. And this is going to be the challenge with this prize moving forward for this year as well as in future years to come. Now, I understand that there are not going to be 16 books on every long list that are topics that I find interesting, and that's okay. I am still willing to read outside my comfort zone and try a book, even if it's not something that I think I will get along with, and I can appreciate qualities of books even if I don't appreciate the subject matter. And that's why I am giving this a 3-star instead of a lower score. I liked this book for what it was and for what I took away from it. But I do know that I've talked to someone else that read this book that is very interested in economics that was blown away by it. So I preface my review by saying once again that this is more so about me than I believe the actual book. So don't come for me. I am just giving my opinion about my experience reading this book. Now, as I mentioned, this book is about capitalism, and it focuses very heavily on the economy and economics through the entirety of it. And this is a subject that I should be more interested in. Financial planners would say that I should probably be more interested in it, but it's never been a subject that I have gelled with. As soon as anybody starts talking about the unsexy parts of money, I am like, it's like a snooze fest for me. And I fully understand that about myself. And yes, that absolutely contributed to my level of enjoyment for this book. So what I'm going to do is remove my distaste for the subject out and focus on the positives that I found in this book. And there were, even though this was not a book for me, there were several things that I found to be impressive about this book, even though it's not a subject matter that I am interested in. First of all, you can tell that Grace Blakeley is an intelligent woman and she knows what she's talking about. She does a lot of research, and that is very evident. I don't think that she took any of the pieces or parts of what she was putting into this book for granted. She didn't take liberties. She seems to have done her homework, and she wanted to make sure that she was clear and she had her facts straight before she started this book and before she presented it to the public, because this is a type of book that could be extremely polarizing depending on the political party you are on, which country you live in. There are several factors within this book that could be extremely polarizing. So knowing that going into a book like this, you have to have your facts straight, or else the haters are going to come for you because of the fact checking and things like that. She also broached very sensitive topics in a respectful way where she's getting her point across, but she's not shoving it down your throat. And she's also being respectful of the other side of the coin that might not like what she has to say. So I found that to be respectful. I think sometimes when we're reading books that can be polarizing, the author tends to be very blunt and aggressive. And although I can appreciate that style in certain types of books, when you're really trying to convince somebody to change their ways or see the light about something that as the author you find inherently wrong with your country or your society or how all of that operates, you can't necessarily be as cutthroat on paper as you may be in your mind or the thoughts that you're thinking. So I think that she approached that very well, and in the end, I didn't feel at the end of the book that she was overly aggressive or preachy in any of the chapters. Now, the other thing that I found really fascinating about this book, which is the most interesting part of the book, is that for a book that focuses so highly on economics, she was able to present it in a language that was understandable. So for me, somebody that absolutely hates the topic and wants to fall asleep as soon as I hear the word capitalism or economy or any of those types of things, she did it in a way that still had my attention. It didn't make me sleepy. It was done in a way that didn't make me feel unintelligent for not knowing more about the subject. And there was no infantilizing with it either. She used adult language, but she used language to make a layperson like myself understand. And I think that she also added enough anecdotal pieces to her writing where maybe somebody that had more advanced knowledge of the subject would also take something away from it as well. So I was impressed by that. And then the final thing that I appreciated about that is that she also was able to take well-known news events from recent years and prove her points through those events that the common reader like myself would be aware of or understand. And I was so appreciative for that, because there's nothing that's more frustrating than when an author, especially with nonfiction, when they're trying to teach you something or convince you something, and they present their argument and that's it. They don't really give you any background to better help you understand what that argument is, and they make assumptions about your level of knowledge. And she was really able to prove, prove is a strong word, because a lot of her opinions are obviously subjective, and it's nonfiction, but it is opinion-based nonfiction. She was able to do it with those events that made it more digestible. So for example, one of the first chapters, she was talking about bailouts and corporate greed, and how sometimes, even though these giant corporations know that they're doing something wrong, they still do things to hide things and cover things up. And, she briefly mentioned Volkswagen for all of that trouble they were in over fudging their emissions numbers. And she also brought up the story about Boeing and I forget what the name of the planes are, but they were that was the type type of plane that was involved in those two horrific crashes. I think the Indonesian flight and the one in Ethiopia, but how decisions that were made at a corporate level to help save the company money ultimately led to people dying. And although that was a horrible, tragic story, that to me made the story and her point real, and I was able to understand more about what she was saying because she humanized the story, but it was also something that was well known in the public. She could have very easily taken a story that was well known in the field of economics, or a story that only people that were really in the know in that world or lived in that world on a daily basis would know, but she was able to make that argument accessible for all types of readers. So I did appreciate that. So this is not a review hating on the book at all. It had many good qualities. I just can't give it anything above a 3. I just have to remain neutral about it because I am not the subject matter expert, and although I learned, it was a challenge for me as a reader, and I am not really going to remember a lot of this book, a month from now, or maybe even a week from now. And one of the other things that I will also mention about it, we are talking about a quite niche subject, and this is the first of the nonfiction books that I have read that wasn't telling a story. It was very much a nonfiction where we are presented with a theory, we are presented with an argument, and for me, the writing that is included in a book or a nonfiction piece that's based on a story has the advantage of having the writing be beautiful and lyrical and the type of prose that you would read in a fiction book. It's very difficult to fictionalize a factual book like this that's telling you or educating you on something. And you're not meant to put a book down like this and say, oh, I read that book, Vulture Capitalism, and the writing was stunning. It was beautiful. It was lyrical. It was all of those flowery things. And obviously, I gravitate more toward books that are giving me that type of beauty in the writing. And that wasn't something that I got from this book. It doesn't mean that the book wasn't good. It just means that it wasn't my kind of book. And I think that at the end of the day, like I said, there is going to be an audience for this. There is going to be a group. I know one of my friends that read this book loved it. They thought that all of the arguments were presented well, they understood it, but they also are in banking, so they have more interest in the subject, and their opinion of it was much higher than mine. So it's not going to deter me from reading any of the other books from the long list that are more niche subjects or specific subjects. I think that that's going to be both the beauty and the crux of a prize like this, because there are so many different types of nonfiction, and it's great that we have that variety of nonfiction, but it's going to be difficult to come up with a universal long list that every single reader is going to find appealing or every single reader is going to get something out of. So yeah, 4 books down. I'm still calling it a success, even though this was my first 3-star. And remember, 3-star is not bad. 3-star means I liked it. I enjoyed it. When you start to dip below a 3, that's when it's a problem. But we haven't got there there yet. I certainly hope that we stay at 3 or above. And yeah, I'm not sure which book I'm going to read next. I have a whole bunch of holds that are just waiting to come in. So what's going to end up happening is they all flood in and then I get confused and then I won't know what to pick up. But until we read again, bye.